Okay, so I haven't done a My Hero video for a little while, so this is what this is gonna be. Even though this is obviously not a My Hero shirt, but I got, a bunch of my Hero figurines over here. We got Uraraka, we got Sue as a pop vinyl, we got Todoroki, we got All Might, we got Izuku, and we got Bakugo. So, or Dynamite, if we want to go by that. So this video is actually going to be the first in kind of a series of videos that I kind of want to do. They might be a little bit interspersed depending on some of the other videos I have planned. But this series is going to be about it kind of comes out of what we just heard from Death Arms in one of the recent chapters for the manga, where we see him stripping off his costume, and he's saying it's like, I tried and tried, and I thought I could get through this, and I thought that I could deal with all the bad comments, but I can't. It's so many of the bad comments and so few good ones and everything. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, yeah, no, I understand. The same thing applies in real life. Um, and like I've heard that before, that it's like, one good comment or one bad comment can make, can need like 10 good comments to make that comment feel less hurtful. Um, and it's like I do YouTube videos, and thank you to the people who have given me very nice comments on videos, to the people who have liked the videos, to the people who have even just watched the videos. I do thank you very much for that. So I guess a little bit of that there. Thank you to the people who have subscribed up to this point and who will hopefully continue to subscribe. Um, so I thank those people for their nice comments, but I am also aware of the fact that at some point in the future, there are going to be people that put mean comments on my videos, or, criticize me because of something I forgot or something along those lines. And I'm aware that that is probably going to happen, what I want to do for these. And I understand that's going to happen. I've accepted that fact. I've mentioned in other videos that, I know what it's like to be made fun of. I wouldn't say that I was quite like Izuku, where, I was the exact, the outcast of everyone, but I just, I didn't have a whole lot of friends throughout, middle school and high school and everything. But, and I know what it feels like to be picked on and bullied and everything. But, it wasn't as bad as Izuku's, obviously, or as some of the kids have had to deal with in My Hero. But I was gonna have these videos kind of be about that. It's like the dark times that the characters go through, and then how they got out of that, what pushed them out of that to keep going, what pushed them to, in the case of some of the characters, to continue to be heroes, to continue to want to become heroes, to continue to teach heroes, in the case of the teachers at UA, continue to support the heroes, in the case of like Izuku's mom, like in Inko's case, and in Rei's case, and in the case of the other parents who continuously support their students, their children, to continually want to become heroes. So I kind of wanted to go through and do something like that. This first video is going to be about the UA staff and teachers. So this will include, Nezu, Recovery Girl, King Vlad, or Vlad King, Midnight. That's gonna take a while. A bunch of them. All Might will not be included in this list. He will have his own video. And then I'll do like some ones about like Class 1A, Class 1B. Class 1B might get kind of lumped into one video just because we don't see that much of Class 1B. Up to this point, we haven't seen that much of them. Some of the other miscellaneous students, so, Mirio and Amajiki and Hondo and, Shinzo and, Hatsume. And then, going into like some of the heroes, like as I mentioned, Death Arms, but also like, Mount Lady and Kamui Woods, and, even Endeavor, and, Best Genus and such, and, and Hawks, and then like other ones in regards to The civilians, as I said, you know, the kids as parents, or even like Eri falls under the civilian category, and, you know, Kota. Um, and then, you know, some about, I may even do some about like the villains. Although for the villains, it's not necessarily that they, you know, they got through the dark times and then got better, as in like they not like went toward the light, but like, you know, they found their own version of that. Um, you know, they found their own version of, you know, of where they felt at home. Twice is a good example of that, with, you know, with everything that happened with him and his quirk and the multiplying and everything. And then, you know, he went through so much and he bonded with the League, with Toga, with Mag, with, you know, with so many of the other League members. Um, and then, you know, and that, you know, and like, you know, him and Toga were best friends, as I went over in the Villains at Rest video from, you know, several months ago. um and I kind of want to do some different videos about that. So this video, as I said, is going to be about the UA staff minus All Might, who will have his own video because he's had a lot of, you know, downs and ups and ups and downs and such throughout his life. So we'll start with the principal. We'll start with Nezu. So obviously, Nezu, Mr. Principal, is the principal of UA High School. His backstory is basically he's an extremely rare case of an animal who manifested a quirk, which for him is high spec. You know, Nezu's quirk allows him to grant, you know, has this you know, extremely high level of intelligence that surpasses that of, you know, you know, probably like 99.99999% of, you know, humans. With like, you know, maybe like All for One and, you know, something like that being, you know, the exception to that rule, with very few others being at that same level. Um, and of course, we don't 100% know what Nezu is. He's referred to as like a mouse, bear, dog thing. So I say he looks more like a mouse, and, you know, Nezu comes from, you know, Nezumi, which is, you know, mouse or rat in Japanese. So I'm going to lean toward he's a mouse, but he's adorable, and I wouldn't mind a plushie of him. I would not be surprised if there are Nezu plushies out there. That would not surprise me in the slightest. But you know, it enables him to you know, think freely and live you know, a normal life as a person. We also know from some of this stuff that he likes to smoke, because in like the sketch that we get of like him in his civilian clothes, he's like smoking, and I'm just like, yeah, I hope you don't do that in front of your students. I know smoking has slightly different connotations than it in Japan, to a degree that it does here, but still. And it does in the States. Um, what we know about Nezu's history is at some point, long before he became the UA principal, he was experimented on by humans. And, you know, he was experimented on and mistreated. And, you know, because he was a quirk and an animal with a quirk. And they're like, okay, well, let's see what he can do. And considering that he's like a mouse rat type thing, a mouse type thing, um, they probably experimented on him, like trying to do so many different like mazes and like the stupid button test where it's like you push the right button and you get a treat, or if you hit the wrong button you get a, you know, shock, or just, you know, all these other things that they made him do, and they experimented on him and everything. I actually kind of picture it being a little bit like how they would experiment, like how they've experimented with the like you know, Rocket Raccoon from, you know, Marvel. You know how he's, you know, has, you know, Rocket says in um one of the Guardians movies. I don't remember if it's Guardians Volume 1 or Volume 2, but he says in one of the movies, you know, I was like, I've been, you know, taken apart and putting back together so many times. You know, there's no one like me except me, you know, but me. And I think Nezu is also a very good case of that. Although, as far as we are aware, he has not been, you know, modified with any types of electronics or anything like that. Um, but eventually, you know, the mistreatment, unfortunately, that he had by those humans led him to develop this very sadistic side to his otherwise very polite personality, very polite and rather sophisticated personality. Um, and then at some point he was, you know, rescued from that. We don't know if like at some point, like maybe that, you know, research operation got shut down or what, we don't know. That was never explained, but he eventually got away from that, or maybe he escaped or something. Maybe he was experimented on by villains or a different government or something. Because I don't remember if we ever get Nezu's age or not, and if we have, I apologize. I just don't know what that is. But he's there, and he eventually ends up, becoming the principal of UA High. And in that time frame, he meets, Toshinori, he meets, All Might. I don't remember if they stated he was the principal when All Might was there, but that would have been quite a while ago. And again, we don't know Nezu's age as far as I can remember. But he might have been. But obviously, All Might trusts him enough to tell him about One for All. Nezu was one of the very few people that knew about All Might's quirk. And he was one that even suggested that Mirio become the one to inherit All Might's quirk before All Might met Izuku. So that it shows that amount of trust that, All Might has in Nezu. And in regards to like Nezu getting out of the dark place, with where he was experimented on and everything and mistreated and everything, he turned that on its head, and now he's using his intelligence and everything that he knows to train future heroes, to train, Zuku's class and Class 1B and all these other students, and how to be heroes and how to be support, and all these other ones, to help them be the best that they can be, so that way they continue to help protect the world, and maybe to a degree even help with, preventing other people like him from being experimented on. I would say that him and Eri kind of have a bit of a connection in that case, because she grew up being experimented on by, Overhaul. And, I would assume that Nezu has some form of, sympathy and connection with Eri in that concept of he was experimented on for, probably a fair amount of his life, or his early life, once they found out that he was an animal with a quirk. And then, Eri was experimented on so much by Overhaul, and went through so much that, Nezu wants to see her happy. And I think that kind of goes with the fact of, he, wanted to make sure that she could come to the or to the cultural festival, and that she was there for that, and that he's letting her, now she's like staying at the dorm, she's staying with Izawa. I'm going to assume that Nezu at least had to okay that. And they're allowing Eri to kind of help train her quirk, and we know that of course comes to fruition, which I'll go over more in Mirio and then Eri's videos later on. But Nezu got out of that dark place that he was for all of his mistreatment, and now he uses that to help train the students. We saw him go up against Kaminari and Ashido during the final exam. They failed, but we got to see him let loose his sadistic side a little bit, and we got to see kind of what his intelligence spec allows him to do. And so we see that with him. Next one for the UA staff is Recovery Girl, or Chio Suzengi, the youthful heroine Recovery Girl. Now, we don't know that much about Recovery Girl's past. It is assumed that she, we know about her quirk. She can heal people. Not any injury, because obviously she couldn't heal All Might's injury. She probably helped with some of the healing, and was probably helpful in some of the surgeries that he had to go through after his fight against, All for One. But she's, and Nezu was there doing a lot of that as well. But we also don't really know that much about her past. Her quirk allows her to heal people, obviously. We see her do that with Izuku way back in the beginning. She's healed him. She's healed Bakugo and so many of the other students, of course, throughout the course of the, the manga and the anime that we've seen. She likes to chastise the students when they're being stupid with their quirks. She, chastises All Might at various points in time, because she can obviously deduce that Izuku is the one that has his quirk now, and that, he needs to be more careful with the students. Recovery Girl is also extremely observant. you know, so that's how, you know, she's very observant in the fact that she can pick up on different things. Um, you know, we don't really know that much about her past. She obviously has medical training. You know, so she may have gone DUA, we don't know that, or she may have gone to one of the other hero schools and, you know, used her quirk and trained her quirk there. And then she may also need to know a fair amount of medical knowledge in regards to using her quirk. So we don't know. Maybe she went through something in her past that, you know, led her down that road, or we don't know. But she's very tries to, you know, help, you know, inspire the students, encourage them and everything, 'cause she wants them to become good heroes. But she also doesn't like it that they end up getting hurt a lot. I kind of liken her to like Madame Pomfrey from like Harry Potter. Because, you know, Madame Pomfrey, you know, Harry ends up in the, you know, in the infirmary in the hospital wing almost, you know, almost at least once a year, at some point, either via Voldemort plot or Quidditch or something else. Um, he ends up there at some point almost every single year. Sometimes through no fault of his own. But he ends up there. And you know, she has to deal with him along with so many other students. So I kind of liken, you know, Recovery Girl to Madame Pomfrey in that case. Um, Also, if I remember correctly, Weird said I think Madame Pomfrey might have been in Hufflepuff. That sounds about right, but I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'll put it here that I was wrong. If I'm right, then yay, I was right, and she's a Hufflepuff like me. Um, uh, more my hero. We have Lunch Rush, who's the chef at the school who runs the cafeteria. We have no idea about Lunch Rush's past. We don't even know their quirk. We just know they're the chef. Moving on. We have 13, Space Hero 13. We're, of course, introduced to 13 at the USJ, you know, the unforeseen circumstances, you know, joint. And you know, she's, you know, I don't remember if it's ever specifically stated whether or not 13 is male or female, but you know, we have 13. 13's quirk is black hole. They can replicate the effects of a black hole from their fingertips, and it's, you know, extremely powerful suction force. You know, the 13 used that to fight against, you know, Kurogiri during the attack at the USJ. And in regards to like the dark part that I would say, you know, say that 13 had to go through in regards to that is, you know, 13 kind of got ripped apart to a degree by Kurogiri with the way that they fought, with the way that Kurogiri kind of, you know, ripped apart their costume, and probably caused a fair amount of damage to 13. And you know, we haven't seen 13 outside of their hero costume, so we don't know exactly what their body composition is. They could be like, you know, Kurogiri and have, you know, like the, you know, like the warp gas around them, but they may also have, um you know, like that, like Kurogiri has like a physical body inside of that. Or they could be like Kamui Woods, who is, you know, this, you know, he's a living tree for all intents and purposes. Um, but he's also, you know, he's, you know, not human, but he's a living tree. So he's like a, you know, we don't know exactly how to describe him sometimes, but um, he is a, you know, he's, you know, not quite, you know, the same thing as, you know, like Izuku. Like if Izuku got ripped apart by Kurogiri, that would be very bad. It was quite painful for, you know, 13 as well, but they seem to have recovered. They were there later on during the final exam art. They fought against Uraraka and Aoyama, and you know, Uraraka and Aoyama barely passed, but they passed. Um, but you know, they're there later on. They're there. You know, 13 is there during the Paranormal Liberation arc, and is there fighting through that and everything. So you know, they keep popping up. We don't know a huge amount about them, but they keep popping up, and they're very supportive of the students and went through kind of their own, you know, got a whole lot of, you know, dark spot with the fact of, you know, this place that they built that's supposed to help train kids to be heroes and rescue heroes got attacked, and you know, hopefully they've, you know, been able to go back there and not get attacked this time. rest of the UA staff, or more of the UA staff, we have, Hound Dog, who is the counselor. We have Ryu Inui, hunting dog hero Hound Dog. His quirk is dog. His quirk gives him the attributes and abilities of a dog, such as heightened sense of smell, and he looks like a dog. The main thing that we interact with him, he's the guidance counselor for UA, the lifestyle guidance counselor. We see him at like the beginning of the hideout raid arc. He's talking to students, and when he starts talking, he's very he starts barking like a dog. But we don't really get that much with him, and then we see him a little bit more during the gentle villain arc, where we have Izuku fighting Gentle and Labrava, and he encounters them. And then he ends up, he knows that Izuku fought against them, but, Izuku wanted to make sure that Eri still got to have her fun at the festival and everything, and that the students just got to have a fun time. And he growls at and intimidates Izuku and everything, and kind of, chastises Izuku. But he's probably helped a lot of students. Like, part of what comes with being a hero is there's a lot of probably post-traumatic stress, which would not surprise me in the slightest. But his job is, of course, to help the students and the staff to a degree, I would assume, with trying to get through, after the dark time happens and they're still dealing with the dark time, to help them kind of start getting back into, the good. And I hope at some point they do show some of the students and even some of the staff to a degree going to talk to him, because I don't think that's an aspect that they've explored quite yet with My Hero, and I think they should. We get some of the stuff with like the mental barriers that the students have to go through. Like, we see that with Izuku, and with some of the other students we saw that with Ito, with what happened with Tensei. But it's also a good idea to get it that they kind of show that it's not bad to want to go and talk to someone about your problem, that doesn't make you weak. And after everything finishes with like the whatever they refer to as like the Izuku on the run arc, where Izuku's off being Izuku's independent arc or whatever, we'll see what happens with that. Izuku hopefully will end up going back to UA at some point, and maybe they'll show something that shows him talking with Hound Dog, or talking with one of the other teachers, about what was going through his head at that point in time. Or like maybe they'll show something where they show some of the other students have gone to the counselor and talked with him. I think that would be a very good thing to show. Nothing against Hound Dog. I like Hound Dog. Nothing against therapists in general. I haven't had the best, to a degree, the best interactions with therapists, but I do know that there are very good therapists out there. Therapists and psychologists. I have a cousin who's either a therapist or a psychologist, and they seem fine. But unfortunately, they're not really allowed to treat family, which I can understand. Moving on, we have someone who probably definitely needs to go and speak to the therapist or the psychiatrist at some point. We have the Erasure hero is, Eraserhead, Shota Izawa, who is, of course, the teacher for Class 1A. His quirk is, of course, he can, his quirk gives him the ability to, look at someone who has a quirk and he can cancel out their quirk for the most part. He, of course, lists that there's, exceptions to this rule. Certain quirk mutations he can't quite affect. But there are other things that he can affect. Like, he cancels out, One for All in Izuku, and he cancels out several other quirks. And, of course, during the USJ incident, we see him cancel out quite a few quirks while he's fighting with all the villains. And of course he has his, his capture ribbon that he uses. And he's also very skilled in martial arts. So that's very good for him to be able to have. He had this quirk, and he's like, okay, well, that kind of puts me a little bit on the level playing field with, the villains, because I can, I can cancel out their quirk for, set amount of time. And if I have, my martial arts skills, and then he gets the capture ribbon during his time at UA, I would assume he's then able to use that to help with his fighting. So he doesn't 100% rely on his quirk, but he uses it and then uses the capture ribbon. And of course, he's training, Shinso on how to use the capture ribbon. And we'll see how far Shinso has, come, hopefully. Kind of near the end of this arc. Maybe he might show up. We don't know. Maybe all of Class 1A will show up. That would be nice. I mean, but when I'm recording this, in the last chapter, just after, when I'm recording this, Bakugo showed up and helped Izuku. And we'll see, if any of the other class show up, is Shoto going to be there, or are there going to be other students that show up? Is Aizawa going to show up and start helping with that? He got rather beat up during the Paranormal Liberation Army arc, so we'll see what happens with that. But also with Aizawa, and I mentioned this back in the Fallen Heroes video. I talked about Ouroboros, who was Aizawa and Present Mic and Midnight's friend back at UA. He was in Shoto in Aizawa and Present Mic's class, and he was their friend. They were all training together. They all wanted to become heroes together. He was one of the few people that, showed that, Aizawa got close to. And then, of course, as I mentioned in that video, during one of the, when we get this flashback during Vigilantes, and they touch on this a little bit in the actual manga, we get it where Oboro dies when, during their internships, and I think it's their second year internship, because Midnight is still an intern and she's the year ahead of them. So they would be year 2 and she's year 3. But he gets, supposedly killed in that attack during that battle. And, Aizawa then has to, we see in the manga, in the Vigilantes, we see Aizawa push himself through this. We see, but first we see him and Midnight and Present Mic all break down because their friend died. And I don't blame them in the slightest for that. We see them all break down, and it's this moment when they all realize that, yeah, no, it's not possibly only him that might die. And and we get that in, we see that again in, the Paranormal Liberation Army arc, where we see all these other heroes die, and including Midnight, who is, of course, the hero out of all of those that we've been around the longest and know the best, because she's one of the teachers. She's been around the students so much. We see some of her backstory in Vigilantes. But it's still, Aizawa already lost one friend that way, and I think he's, now he's lost 2, and I think Aizawa is going to be very determined to make sure he doesn't lose any more, and particularly determined to make sure that he doesn't lose any of his students. And it'll be very interesting to watch to see what happens with Aizawa with that, because we saw how hard he fought at the USJ to protect the students. With everything that he went through, with Shigaraki decaying part of his arm, and with him taking so much pain and damage in his face that affected his quirk that way. And then, of course, we saw at the training camp arc when he's fighting, when he fights against Dabi and everything, or the Dabi clone, I should say, and then, fights his way through the forest to help the Pussycats and to get the students and everything, and then, gets to Izuku, and then, of course, we just, and he fought so hard through, again, through the, as I mentioned, through the Hideout Raid arc, where they're trying to save Eri and everything. And we just, we see him fight through that too. And now he's trying to help Eri with, he wants to help with her quirk so she can, help her be able to control her quirk so she doesn't have to worry about accidentally, rewinding anyone again, without knowing what she's doing. But, so also so she can help Mirio. And, we see a lot of that with Izawa, that he very much cares for Eri, and it just gives me a reason to show cute pictures of Izawa and Eri. um, I'll get to watch the Christmas episode, the where the UA, where the class is all celebrating Christmas and everything. I'll get to watch that one like the day after I record this or whatever, because I'm recording this at like the beginning of July. And I'll get to watch this, watch that episode. So it's just, Eri is adorable, and I love that Izawa is basically raising her and adopted her. We'll see what happens with that. But it's, it gives him this light, this light, this pure thing, that it gives him a reason to keep fighting. And then we get into present Mike. Similar backstory that we have with, Izawa. Was a student at UA. He was friends with Ouroboros as well. He was not there specifically when Ouroboros died, but he was, he found out afterwards, and that was still extremely, extremely painful. And in the manga, in Vigilantes, in the flashback, we see Yamada, we see present Mike watching Izawa keep training, keep pushing himself harder and harder, training with his capture ribbon more, physically training even more to be even stronger and faster and such. And it's just very interesting to watch that, to read that. I would love it. Admittedly, just like other people, I would love it if they did a My Hero Vigilantes anime. That would be wonderful. See, Crawler and Pop Step and Knuckle Duster, just all of them there. That would be great. Get some more Midnight and some more, Eraserhead in there. Get to see him becoming a teacher to a degree. And again, it's like, again, tying back into, present Mike and Midnight all tie into Izawa's backstory because of that. All three of them tie into that because of Ouroboros. And, present Mike, he's still very encouraging to the students and everything. He's still very protective of the students. Beyond the Ouroboros thing, we haven't really seen too much of present Mike at like a low point. He's, probably very much grieving the probably grieved extremely the loss of Ouroboros, of course, and now he's probably, still grieving the loss of Midnight, who's his friend and colleague and everything, and has been his friend for quite a while. And grieving that loss. But also, just like Izawa, he probably wants to go out there and wants to help, Izuku, and help save, all the rest of the people, and try to help fix what's going on, the crumbling that's going on in Hero Society. And, I'm sure he wants to help with that. And, we'll see kind of basically at the point in the manga, the entire world, particularly Japan from what we've seen, but also other parts of the world, are just like crumbling with, this Hero Society falling apart. And it's just this like dark and hopeless thing going on right now, with all these villains just running rampant, and with heroes retiring left and right. And it's going to be very interesting to see how after that this arc is finished, and hopefully after, All for One is gone and Shigaraki is either gone or saved, depending on how that plays out. I don't know where to land for that for Shigaraki. For like, I kind of want him to be saved because, redeemable type thing, but I also wouldn't be, remiss to him getting killed. But I also don't want Izuku to have to kind of become that type of a hero. And admittedly, there's a difference between killing someone during a fight and during a battle and trying to, kill them to protect someone else, and then killing them in cold blood. There's a complete difference there. And, Izuku wouldn't take either of them lightly, of course, but, back to, present Mike and Izawa and Midnight, it's, now Midnight's gone, and that's causing the students, of course, to go through that dark spot, and then Izuku left. And, Hero Society, that this is a society that they've been trying to train to be able to help protect and preserve, is now crumbling outside of the walls of UA. And I'm sure, there's a ton of students at UA whose parents are taking them out of UA, even in like the general studies course or the finance course or whatever, that are probably just like, taking them out of UA. It's like going, nope, 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 you're not going to be a hero. You're going to come home, and we're going to go somewhere safe. We're going to go somewhere where there's not heroes, where there's not villains, and we're just going to go and be gone. And Izawa was probably watching this, and President Mike's probably watching this, along with all the rest of the teachers. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that. And we'll see. I guess we'll kind of see what ends up being like Midnight's legacy. Obviously, what she taught the students will be there, but she's the Yamada is, of course, President Mike is, of course, the English teacher, and of course Midnight is the modern hero art history teacher, which I'm just like, okay. But moving on down the list, we have Cementos, or Ken Ishiyama, who is the modern literature teacher at UA. He is, of course, he has his quirk cement. He can, create and manipulate cement and everything. We don't really see any extremely like dark moments with him. I mean, he's at the USJ at the end. I'm pretty sure that he was involved in some of the other battles that we've seen. He's been a hero for a while, so we're pretty sure that he's been in other situations where he couldn't save someone, or because like every hero has been in that situation. Even All Might has said that there are situations out there where it's like you can't save everyone. And, All Might's been in those situations. All the heroes at UA have, all the teachers have. Every single hero throughout the entire story has been in those situations where you can't always save everyone. But, he's there. He's supportive of the students, of course. He's supportive of the rest of the staff and his friends. All the staff at UA seem to be friends. And then, of course, we have Snipe, who's in charge of the third-year students. Again, we don't know that much about him. We see him at the USJ. We see him during the final exam arc. He's there against Invisible Girl, Hagakure, and Shoji. And then, of course, Cementos is, goes up against, for the final exam arc, he goes up against Kirishima and Sato. They don't pass, unfortunately, but, just said her name, Invisible Girl. Invisible Girl. We'll just go with Invisible Girl. Hagakure. I'll eventually get all the names specific correct. Hagakure and Shoji, of course, they passed against Snipe. But it's still, we don't know that much about Snipe. I'm pretty sure he was part of the battle against the Paranormal Liberation Arc, or Liberation Army, but we'll see what happens with that. We have Ectoplasm, who's the math teacher. He was in the final exam again. He was at the USJ. He was in the final exam against Sue and Tokoyami. Again, we don't know that much about his past. His quirk is like, multiply or whatever it is. Not quite the same as Twice, because he can only multiply himself. Twice can multiply other people as well. Ectoplasm can just, multiply himself. He's very good for being like target practice for the students, but I kind of hope that he doesn't feel the pain that his clones feel, because that would be bad. Yeah, that'd be very bad. But it's just, we don't know that much about him. We haven't seen that much about his past. Same thing with the excavation hero, Power Loader, or Higari Meijima, who's kind of the head of the support hero group, or support items group, because he's around Hatsume a lot. And he's got a cool outfit. But, again, we don't know that much about him. Probably, again, like the rest of the heroes at UA, has been through good and bad. And then, of course, we have Blood Hero Vlad King, who's, of course, Sekijiro Ken, who's the homeroom teacher for Class 1B. Very proud of his students. Have nothing against that, but I like the fact during the class 1A versus 1B battles that they just had. He's doing the commentary, and I like how the class 1A in the background keeps popping up with all of the this is biased commentary in the background. I just found that hilarious every single time they did that. Um, but he's very proud of his class, and I can't blame him for that. He's there during the training camp arc with his class, of course, brings them to the Wild Wild Pussycats territory. But it's, he's there and he fights against one of the Dobby clones as well. And helps Izawa with that and protects the students that are still at the cabins area that are doing kind of their remedial classes after, while the other kids are supposedly out having fun, and then there's a villain attack. But we see that with him. He went through that moment. Him and Izawa were both, at the, him and Izawa and Nezu were at the press conference when, Izawa is taking responsibility for the fact that, yes, Bakugo got kidnapped, and yes, it's my responsibility, but we are going to do everything in our power to get him back. And, Vlad King is there, and so is Nezu. And, Izawa takes great pride in his students, and so does Vlad King. He's very, very proud of his students, and I don't blame him in the slightest. He's a teacher. He's supposed to be proud of his students. He wants all of his, all of Class 1B to succeed. Although he kind of encourages Monoma at times, which is probably not a good thing. Yeah, kind of encourages Monoma there. But it's quite interesting watching, like we know that all the teachers have been heroes for a while, and it is quite interesting to understand the fact that every single one of these teachers, has probably been through something bad that happened to them. With Izawa and Present Mike and Midnight, it was they lost Ouroboros so many years ago. And, they've been part of the Vigilantes events and everything. And then, they've dealt with that thing, those things there, and we've seen all these other things that happen with the, with just the kids that are going through training right now and what they went through with their, with internships and with, other things like that. And it's going to be quite interesting to see how, just basically to watch how the different students are going to interact with the concept with the teachers that we went through, maybe not the exact same things, but we've watched people that we couldn't save. We went through these horrible times where we lost our friends, or where our friends were injured, or where we thought that our friends might never wake up, in the case of maybe a friend, one of their friends who was also a hero, or each other got badly injured and they didn't know if they were going to wake up, if they were in a coma or something, or make it through surgery. And, we see that so much. And it's, one of the things that you have to take into account with them, that these are heroes, but as Death Arm says, they're also just humans. Yeah, they're looked at as like gods among men. Like, All Might was put upon this huge pedestal, and then that pedestal fell, and then now all these other pedestals that, were, helping hold up this roof that All Might was holding up so much on his own, now that roof and those pedestals are all crumbling underneath that weight. And eventually we're going to see what happens with that. How many of the teachers are still going to be teachers by the end of the story? Hopefully most of them. How, is Nezu still going to be the principal? Hopefully Izawa will still be there and be able to help, cheer Class 1A on in his own way of scaring the crap out of them. Yeah, in his own way of scaring the crap out of them to motivate them. Him and his problem children. As he always refers to, Bakugo and Izuku and so many of the other students, that continuously break the rules. But, he wants what's best for his students, but he also wants them safe, but he also knows that they need to become heroes. And it's going to be very interesting to see, what other, are there going to be other heroes that are going to become teachers at UA after everything's finished? Sad to say they're going to need a new modern art history hero. her teacher, since Midnight's gone. And, you know, we'll see what else happens with the rest of the staff at UA. You know, All Might may not be able to be the teacher anymore. We'll see how that goes. You know, don't want All Might to die, of course, but, you know, it's kind of been said that that's going to happen, and it's not going to be a surprise that it will happen. It'll just be when it's going to happen. You know, it's like, you know, and I'll go over that in All Might's video, but it's like, I don't want them to lose any of the other teachers. I don't want any of the other teachers to die. I don't want that. You know, I don't want Izawa to die. I don't want Vlad King to die, or Cementos, or Nezu, or, you know, Recovery Girl, or, you know, Ectoplasm, or any of them. I don't want any of the other teachers to die. We already had that happen with Midnight, but that doesn't mean that that may not still happen. You know, on that matter, you know, I don't want any of Class 1A to die or 1B to die. You know, I like them, obviously. I like most of Class 1B. Motomo can go jump off of a cliff. For all I care. Yeah, he can go jump off of a cliff. The rest of the class is fine. But it's just like, I look at that with so many of the students, and it's just like, I don't know what to say with, you know, like the teachers and everything. They've all gone through their dark moments, but the mere fact that they are teachers at this school that is training kids to become heroes, that they're putting all their efforts into trying to make sure that these students can become the best heroes that they can, implies that they know that as long as you keep pushing through the bad, and yeah, there's going to be pain there, there's going to be sadness, there's going to be sorrow, there's going to be grief and loss. But if you can get to the other side of it, if you can get to the other side and make it through this, you know, this version of hell that you're going through, this glimpse of hell that you're going through, there will be more on the other side. There will be better on the other side. There will be other smiles on the other side. There will be more laughter on the other side. And I'll probably reiterate that a lot throughout the course of these My Hero kind of, you know, kind of 10 good, 1 bad videos, or, you know, bad moments into good moments. And we'll see what happens with that throughout the rest of the story. And of course, as the story goes on, I will be able to say, okay, well, you know, we saw this now happen. We saw this now happen. Well, you know, by the end of, you know, by the time I get through a lot of these, you know, by the time I get through these, we'll see where the manga is, and I might be able to say, see, we got through some of those dark parts some more. We got through this dark part with Izuku being on his own, and now we're going to see what else is going to happen. We're going to see how much more bright these new symbols of peace, these new heroes coming into being can be for the world, how hopeful they can show and be for the world. And the teachers are going to be there and be able to say, yeah, we helped with that. That was our job. Our job is to get these kids to this level so they can keep protecting other people. So that's what I have for this video. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you have a nice rest of your day, and I hope that you just try to remember that, yeah, there's going to be people that'll say bad things or mean things, and there's going to be hard times, but, you know, keep trying to get to that light on the other side, those good things, those friends, those family, those people that you love, or those things that you love. You know, your sports, your reading, your art, your, you know, whatever it is that, you know, helps you get through stuff. Just keep going with that. Yeah, just do that. Bye. We're all starting to feel the effects of losing our symbol more and more as time passes. What we need now is a revival. At least for the students. We need to present them with prospects of a brighter future.